Hello students, I welcome you all to my YouTube channel, that's Akifa's Commerce Classes. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about multiple choice questions on the chapter planning, and this chapter has 5 marks. Okay. So before I start with the multiple choice questions, I would like to just give in brief the areas where you need to concentrate more on. Okay. First of all, you need to know what are the importance of planning. Okay. Then you need to know about the features of planning. Then one very important thing here is that you have to remember about the steps in planning, or you can also say it as planning process. Okay. Now this planning process is something that has to be followed in a certain logical steps. Okay. It means that, for example, if the first process starts with setting objectives, second is developing premises, third is identifying the alternative courses of action. So this has to be studied in a sequence. Okay. So it is more likely that you may get a question on the planning process wherein maybe the planning process is jumbled up and you have to write it in the correct order. Okay. And apart from this, one very important topic in planning is about the different types of plans. Okay. Now the different types of plans include objective, strategy, policy, procedures, methods, rule, program, budget, and so on. So here you don't need to by heart everything, but you only need to know the meaning of each kind of a plan. Okay. You may also get case studies wherein you have to identify which kind of a plan has been used. Okay. So having said that, let's start with our first multiple choice question, that is, name the function of management which involves setting objectives and developing appropriate courses of action to achieve these objectives. Okay. And the options that are available with us are directing, organizing, planning, and staffing. Okay, so students, we know what you mean by planning. Okay, planning in brief is about deciding in advance what to do and how to do it. So we know that planning is something that seeks to bridge a gap between where we are at present and where we want to reach in the future. So it is like a bridge. Okay, it is a bridge where we are and where we want to go. Okay. Now when we say that we need to plan, the plan has to be developed in a certain given time frame. So here it is important that whenever you plan, you have to consider that planning is done for the future, and future is always uncertain. Not always, maybe sometimes you can predict the future, but there is nobody can give an assurance that whatever you have planned, things will turn out exactly the same. Okay, because future is something that cannot be predicted with accuracy. So the first function of management starts with planning, and we know that it is in this function that we decide about the objectives that we need to achieve, and accordingly we developed appropriate ways or courses of action in order to achieve those objectives. Okay, so here our right answer is C, that is planning. Okay, next is, which of the following statement is not true with reference to planning? So the first option is planning is a prerequisite for controlling. It means that you require to plan in order to reach the function of controlling. Okay, so this is true. Second is, planning does not lead to rigidity. So this is something that needs consideration, because planning does lead to rigidity, because as I said earlier also that you plan for the future, but there is no assurance that things may turn up the way you want. Okay, so we know that in an organization a plan is drawn, okay, so that you achieve a particular goal. Now this plan, it decides the future course of action, and manager may not be in a position to change it. So this kind of rigidity in plan, it creates difficulty. So therefore the managers, they need to be given some flexibility in order to be able to cope up with the changing circumstances or the changing situations. Okay, so here what happens is that following a pre-decided plan, when the situations have changed, may not turn out to be what the organization wanted it to be. So here the right answer is, planning does not lead to rigidity. It means that yes, planning does lead to rigidity. Next is, which of the following is not a feature of planning? Okay, the options are, planning is futuristic, planning is pervasive, planning establishes standards for controlling, and planning focuses on achieving objectives. So here it's asked that which of the following is not a feature of planning. Okay, So students, first of all, you should know which are the features and which are the advantages. Okay, apart from C, everything that is point A, point B and point D, they are the features. Only point C, that is planning establishes standards for controlling, is not the feature but it is importance of planning. Okay, so here the right answer is D, because option D is importance of planning. Next is planning requires logical and systematic thinking rather than guesswork or wishful thinking. Identify the related feature of planning. So here the options are: planning is futuristic, planning is a mental exercise, planning establishes standards for controlling, and planning focuses on achieving the objectives. Okay. So now it's said that planning is something that requires a systematic thinking. Okay, it means that if you need to plan, you have to be very logical while planning. It means there is a system and you need to plan systematically rather than just guessworking or just thinking wishfully. So this says that planning, according to the feature of planning, the feature that is planning is a mental exercise. It says that planning requires application of mind involving foresight, intelligent imagination and sound judgment. Okay, in simple words, it is an intellectual activity. Okay, intellectual activity of thinking. It means you need to think first. Okay, because planning determines the action to be taken. Therefore, it is very important that planning requires logical and systematic thinking rather than just guessing about it. So here it is important that whenever you plan accordingly. It means you need to systematically think first and then plan rather than just doing guesswork. So here our right answer is option B, that is planning is a mental exercise. So let's start with our question number 5. That is, planning cannot foresee everything and thus there may be obstacles to effective planning. So identify the related limitations of planning. Okay. So first is planning leads to rigidity. So we know that. Okay. So this cannot be the right answer. Then planning may not work in a dynamic environment. Okay. So this is something that we need to give consideration. So now as we know that planning is something that is done for the future, and future is something that cannot be predicted with accuracy. Therefore, sometimes there may be a kind of a situation wherein our plan may not work in a dynamic environment. First of all, we should know what is a dynamic environment. Dynamic means changing environment. Okay. See, there is nothing that is constant in a business. Okay. For example, there are a lot of dimensions in a business. For example, economic, political, or maybe legal and social. Okay. So now there may be changes into this kind of environment and the organization has to constantly adapt itself to the changes that are taking place. Now it is very difficult that you kind of accurately assess all the future changes that may take in the future and modify your plans. So sometimes what happens is that due to the changing environment, it may not be possible for the plan that we had decided or we had pre-decided to be executed. Okay, therefore planning may not work in an environment which is constantly changing. So your right answer is B. Moving on to the next one, identify the correct sequence of steps involved in the planning process. Okay, so students, we have to know the sequence of planning process. According to me, I feel this is one of the most important questions that you may get on planning chapter. Okay, so you just have to remember the sequence of steps. So we have to remember that the planning process starts with setting an objective. Okay, first you need to decide about an objective. After that's done, you need to develop a premise. So what you exactly mean by developing a premise? Developing premise means planning, as we know, it is done for the future and it is uncertain. Okay, so every planner is very uncertain about what may happen in the future. The manager has to kind of take certain assumptions about the future. So these assumptions that the manager is required to take, they are known as premises. So now what happens is that the premises or the assumptions, it must be same for all and there should be a total agreement on all of them. So all the managers that are involved in the planning should be familiar with this kind of assumptions. Now therefore here it is important that accurate forecast become a very important essential for successful planning. So developing premise comes after setting objectives. Then is identifying alternative courses of action. So once your objectives are set and the assumptions are made, then the next step is to identify the different options that are available with you. Okay, So this is the third step. Next is evaluating the alternative courses. See, evaluating the alternative courses means, so each course or each alternative which you have received, you have to weigh it against each other. It means you have to take into consideration the positive and the negative aspects that are related to each of the alternative that you have jotted down. So accordingly, the best alternative that you get, you need to take it. Then we have that you need to evaluate the alternative courses. Here in these options, it ends only till evaluating alternative courses, but after that you have selecting an alternative, and then the next step is implementing the plan, and the last is follow-up action. So here, as we can see that we are given only the first 4 steps. So the first step is setting objective, then developing premises, then identifying alternative courses of action, and C is evaluating alternative courses. So according to this, our correct answer here is C. Okay. Moving on to the next one. They represent the end point of planning. And the options that are given are rules, methods, objectives and policies. So here this kind of MCQs are examples of different kind of plans. Okay, so you need to know what you understand or what you mean by this kind of planning. Okay, so we know that whenever we need to plan, the first step starts with objectives. So objectives are very basic to the organization, and these objectives, they are defined as ends which the management seeks to achieve by its operation. Okay, like for example, there is an organization, okay, whose aim might be to increase the sales by 10% or maybe to get 20% profit in the near future and so on. So here there are objectives that a particular company or a particular organization intends to achieve, and it is the end point. It is something that you will achieve at the last. Okay. So in order to achieve something at the last, that is called the end point, and for that it is said that you need to first take a step towards planning, that is to set the objectives. Okay, so here the right answer is C, that is objectives. Next is a strategy is derived from, the options are policy, objective, method and rule. So here also our answer is B, that is objective. Okay, because we can get a strategy only from the objectives that we want to achieve. Okay, it means we need to have an objective or a goal. Until and unless we do not have an objective or a goal, on what basis are we going to frame a strategy? Okay, so in order to formulate a strategy, we need to have an objective. According to the objective that we intend to achieve, we will develop a strategy. So moving on to the next one, they provide a basis for interpreting the strategy, which is usually stated in general terms. The options are policies, procedures, objectives and programs. Okay. Now let's read the question once again. They provide a basis for interpreting the strategy. Here the right answer is policies. Okay. Why policies? Because first of all, policies are something that are usually stated in the most general form. Policies, you can see, it is like a guide to the manager in taking decisions in order to implement the different strategies. Okay. So here policies form a basis for interpreting the different strategies. Like for example, the company may have a recruitment policy or maybe a pricing policy within which the objectives are set and the decisions are to be made. So if there is an established policy, it becomes easier to solve the problems or the issues. Okay. As such, a policy is a response to a particular problem or particular situation. Here the right answer is policies. Okay. Because whenever we are given a particular situation, we know that there are a certain guidelines that we need to follow. So these guidelines or this guide is basically the policies. Okay. And when we go through the policies, we will know how we are supposed to interpret a particular strategy. Okay. So let's start with question number 10. The details of exact manner in which any work is to be performed. Okay. And the options are rules, method, procedure and program. Now the question says the details of exact manner in which any work has to be performed. Okay. So we know that here the right answer should be procedure, because what do you mean by procedures? So procedures are certain routine steps on how we are supposed to carry out the different activities. Okay. So they give us details in an exact manner in which the work has to be performed. Okay. So this procedure is something that is given to us in a chronological order, and we need to follow that order only. We cannot jumble it up or shuffle the procedure. So here the right answer is procedure. Moving on to the next one, it helps us to save time, money, effort and increases our efficiency. Options are procedure, program, rule and method. Okay. So now here the right answer is method. I will explain to you all why. Because method is something that is given to us in a particular or in a prescribed way. Okay. It means that method provides us the basic manner in which a task has to be performed while considering the objective that we need to achieve. Okay. So here what happens is the method may change from task to the task. Now see, in procedure, the procedure always remains the same. But in case of method, it may change or it may vary according to the different tasks that you have. Okay. So when you select the most appropriate method, it will save you time, money, effort and it will also help in increasing the efficiency. It means you have to change your method according to the different task that is given to you. So something that can be changed is the method and procedure is something that can never be changed. So moving on to the next one, it is a plan which quantifies future facts and figures. The options are procedure, program, rule and budget. Now here it's mentioned future, okay, and facts and figures. So we know that budget is something that is expressed in numerical terms. So here our correct answer is budget. Okay. Now since budget, it represent all items in numbers. So whenever it comes to budget, it becomes very easy to compare actual figures with the expected figures. Okay. So there may be a difference or there may be a variation in between what you had planned and what actually took place. So here it is a lot more easier to take corrective action subsequently. So you can see that budget is like a control device from which deviations can be taken care of. So therefore here the right answer is budget. Moving on to the next one, which of the following is not a standing plan? Okay. So students, we need to know that under standing plan we have only 3 plans, that is policy, procedure and rule. Okay. I repeat, policy, procedure and rule. So programs, they do not come under a standing plan. Okay, so the right answer here is program. Moving on to the next question. Shubham wants to increase the sale of his business by 15% in the next quarter. So identify the type of plan being described in the above lines. So the options are method, objective, strategy and program. So here our answer is objective. Why objective? Because it is clearly stated that Mr. Shubham wants to increase his sales by a fixed percentage. That means he has a certain objective in his mind, that is maybe 15%, 20% or whatsoever. So he has a particular objective in mind. Therefore here the right answer is objective. Let's start with our next, that is question number 15. So Micromax was India's largest seller of mobile handsets. It launched new low-cost Chinese manufacturing with some smart packaging and features like long-lasting batteries and dual SIM functionality to garner 20% market share in India's value-conscious mobile handset market. So identify the 2 types of plans being described in the above lines. So students, first of all, you all have to make a habit of reading the question twice, because once when we read, we may not grasp everything. Okay, so always read the question 2 times. Now here we can see that Micromax company, it was India's largest seller of mobile handsets. Why was it? Because it had launched low-cost Chinese manufacturing handsets. Okay, it means that first of all the cost of making or manufacturing the phones was very low, and with that they included smart packaging. Okay, and also they included features like long-lasting battery life and also dual SIM functionality. Okay, it means you could use dual SIMs or 2 SIMs in that phone. And they also had something in their mind, that was to garner, it means to get or to achieve 20% market share in India's value conscious mobile handset market. Now from this question we need to identify the 2 types of plans that were in the Micromax company's mind. Okay, now here we can see that first they have used a strategy. What was the strategy? Using smart packaging and giving features like dual SIM functionality. Secondly, they had an objective in mind. It was to get 20% market share in the mobile handset market. So here our right answer is A. Why? Because they had a strategy as well as they had an objective to get 20% market share. Okay, moving on to our question number 16. According to a survey, these days the young children have more power in purchasing decisions than before. So the parents seek their kids' opinion about all kinds of decisions, including where to go for dinner, what kind of car to buy or even what to wear. Therefore, the retailers are adapting to this by enhancing their kids section. if the children want to shop in the store for their clothes, then there is a greater chance that the parents will also see something they want to buy as well. So identify the type of plan being described in the above lines. Okay. So here the answer is strategy, because what is the strategy that has been used? The strategy is that we know that according to a survey, now the young children, they have more power in making purchase decisions. Okay. And nowadays the parents are also considering the opinion of their kids while purchasing different things, be it purchasing a car or being where to go for dinner and so on. So here the retailers, now they know that the kids, they have their opinion of their own. So if they want to buy a particular thing, they will buy it. It means now they can choose for themselves. So now what the retailers did, by keeping this in mind, they have kind of enhanced their retail stores in such a way that they have kids section as well as adults section. Now what happens, whenever the kid comes along with the parents to their retail store, the kids may search things for himself or herself in the kids section. So there is a probability that the parent or the parents who have accompanied their child may also see something for themselves to buy as well. So this is a strategy that has been used. Okay, so here the right answer is strategy. Moving on to the next one, according to World Health Organization, 39% of the adults are overweight. So in UK, a sugar tax was introduced in 2018 on beverages that contain more than 5% sugar in order to curb the sugar intake. Curb in the sense reduce. So identify the type of plan. So here also the answer is strategy, because the strategy that was used in UK was to introduce a tax, okay, a sugar tax, wherein if there are any beverages being sold which contain more than 5% of the sugar, then the individual who is buying the particular beverage has to pay 5% tax on that. So because of this, most of the individuals did not go and buy those particular beverages because they had to pay 5% more tax on that. So in a way, they managed to kind of reduce the consumption of sugar in UK. So by following this, what they did was they followed a strategy to curb the sugar intake in UK. Okay. So here the right answer is strategy. Let's start with our question number 18. The government has been doubling down its efforts to switch to 100% electric vehicles by 2030. So many companies such as Tata Motors, Kinetic Motors, Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai Motors are already readying or introducing their EV models. Okay, EV means electrical vehicles for 2020 launch in order to support the plan. So identify the different types of plan being described in the above line. So first of all, we are aware that there are electric vehicles that have already been introduced in the market. Okay. So now the government has made a lot of efforts to switch to 100% electric vehicles by 2030. Okay. So there are some companies who have already started to launch their electric vehicles into the market. So we have to identify a type of plan that has been used here. So here also it is strategy. Okay. Because it is the strategy of the government to switch to 100% electric vehicles by 2030, and for that they have used this strategy. Okay, so here the answer is strategy. Next one, so Ketan Enterprises adopts different ways to provide training to its employees, like job rotation, coaching, vestibule training, conference, lecture method and so on. So identify the type of plan being described. So now there is an enterprise known as Ketan Enterprises, okay, and these are the different methods of training that are given to the employees. Okay, it means like all the employees that join the particular organization, they are given different kind of trainings according to their job description, or according to their qualifications, or according to what kind of job they are going to perform in the particular enterprise. So the options are job rotation, coaching, vestibule training, conference method, lecture method and so on. So we need to identify the kind of plan that has been used here. So here the answer is method. Why? Because these are the different methods of training that are used by Ketan Enterprises. Okay, there is not a single or only method which is used in order to train the employees that join Ketan Enterprises. Here a list of different training methods are used. Therefore, here the answer is method. Okay. Next is, which of the following is the last method in the planning process? Okay. So you need to know the planning process like really well. So the options that are given to us are evaluating the alternative courses, identifying the alternative courses of action, follow up action and implementing the plan. Okay. So here the right answer is follow-up action, because in this step we see whether the plans are being implemented and the activities are being performed according to the schedule is also a part of the planning process. Okay. It means that monitoring the plans is equally important in order to see to it that whatever objectives that we intended to achieve are achieved or no. So just implementing the plan, when you implement the plan, your planning process does not stop there. So most of the students may take the right answer as implementing the plan. Implementing the plan comes before follow-up action. So first you implement the plan, then you have to follow up the action. It means you have to see whether the plans are being implemented properly or no. Okay. So this is the last question, and here the answer was C, that is follow-up action. So again, these were some important questions that I found to be important from this chapter, that is planning. Considering that this chapter comprises of only 5 marks, I have discussed only 20 multiple choice questions which I found to be important. Okay, and in this 20 MCQs I have covered about the planning process, I have covered about the different types of plans. Also I have given you all different case studies and asked you all to identify the different kind of plans that have been used, and also I have given questions on features and advantages of planning. Now from this MCQ you have to understand that planning is a very easy chapter, and in this chapter the things that you need to concentrate really well is first of all the planning process. Okay. After that you need to just know which are the features and which are the advantages. Okay. You may get multiple choice questions asking to pick out the features from the given importance, or maybe pick out the importance from the given features. Okay. Apart from that, you may also be asked about the different types of plans. Okay. You may be given an example and asked to find out which kind of plan was used in the above statements and so on. So here you don't only need to by heart the concepts, but you also need to understand. Okay. So application of knowledge is very important here. Only theoretical knowledge is not that beneficial, because you may get questions with examples wherein you have to solve the examples and then know which kind of plan was used. Okay. So I hope that this MCQ series on planning will be informative to all of you. Still, if there are any queries or any doubts in your mind, please put it down in the comment section. Also, if you all liked this video, then please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.